Greetings and welcome back to room 303 and our talks with Walt as we're calling our work now through the deathbed edition of Walt Whitman's Leaves of Grass. We turn now to Song of Myself, passage or canto or poem 45. This one, now we've said this whole series from roughly 42 to 52 are the crescendo, we might say, the culminating, the final movement of this integralist pedagogy, as we've used the term. Now, hey, we've already said this out loud. We've been reading thus far to get ready for passage 46 and the first few lines of 47. In room 303, there are no other passages more important, dare we say it, sacred, to our students and to Mr. McGee than passage 46 and the first lines of 47 of Song of Myself. However, before we get there, we have passage 45. Now, just to remind, our key line actually comes from passage 4. Both in and out of the game, and watching and wondering at it, I witness and wait. My hope is that you've been with us at learnstrong.net, down the left-hand side, those talks with Walt, as we're calling this playlist. The 24 poems of inscription, the 19 sections of starting from Paumanok. We're actually going to see and hear so many echoes from that work. Hey guys, you'll remember I said, we were reading, especially starting from Paumanok, to get ready to read Song of Myself. Notice how many times we've made references to starting from Paumanok. And in fact, we'll play the exact same game with Paumanok 19, the very last section of that poem. And then my hope is that you, with Song of Myself, have been with us from the introductory lecture all the way through passage 44. Again, so many unbelievable echoes as we'll move through this set of lines. Passage 45 will start with, "O span of youth, ever pushed elasticity, O manhood, balanced, florid, and full." Can we just for a moment return back to the very opening lines of canto, or of poem 19 of starting from Paumanok, and all of those O's that will get used. 10 times you'll remember. Oh, Camaretto close. Oh, you and me at last and us two only. Oh, a word to clear one's path ahead endlessly. Oh, something ecstatic, undemonstratable. Oh, music wild. These are the lines that preceded Song of Myself, passage 1. Now, as we finish Song of Myself, we'll be returning to some of those same kind of motifs with this O. Oh, span of youth. You know, we've been messing around with youth all the way through Leaves of Grass to this point. And when we talk about pedagogy, we're talking about the way a teacher will teach a student. And I believe strongly that Whitman never lost his first love, which was, in fact, education. He became a journalist, he became a nurse, obviously he became a poet, but fundamentally I think he was always about young people, and especially about helping and teaching them. Notice, ever pushed elasticity. There's always this sense of spreading, growing, everything is growing, everything is growing. Oh, manhood, that is to say, the movement from youth now into manhood. Balanced, everything's about harmony for Whitman. Florid and full, everything is about growth. So we're picking up now all of the major themes as we head into the end of Song of Myself. Then interestingly, he has a strange set of lines. Read them with me. My lovers suffocate me, crowding my lips, thicken the pores of my skin, jostling me through streets and public halls, coming naked to me at night, crying by day, ahoy, from the rocks of the river, swinging and chirping over my head, calling my name from flower beds, vines, tangled underbrush, lightning on every moment of my life, bussing my body with soft balsamic busses, noiselessly passing handfuls out of their hearts and giving them to be mine. Now, this is a very strange set of lines that begins, of course, with the word lovers. Now, I'm not going to pick up on this word until the end, because at the end of this poem we're going to come back to this. But notice the verb suffocate, right? It literally, etymologically, means under or down the throat. Do you remember in passage 33 that he said, all this I swallow, it tastes good, I like it, and he was going through that unbelievable list of all those things that we encountered in 33, many of them obviously very, very disturbing. My lovers suffocate me. crowding my lips. We're going to have interesting kind of sexual language, as we saw earlier in the poem. Thicken the pores of my skin. You almost think about lice here or something, right? Jostling me through the streets and public halls. Whitman, of course, spent a lot of time in cities, New York, Boston, elsewhere. And there were lots and lots of people there. Coming naked to me at night. Can you remember, of course, that we have said that the very first word of Leaves of Grass is the word come, and it keeps coming back, no pun intended, over and over again. Of course, the word naked, notice we'll have two different references early on in Song of Myself. You'll remember in passage number 2 that we were messing around with this set of lines. The atmosphere is not a perfume and has no taste of the distillation. It's odorless. It is from my mouth forever. I'm in love with it. I will go to the bank by the wood and become undisguised and naked. I'm mad for it to be in contact with me. Talking here about being one with nature. And then you remember in passage 3, he said it this way. I'm satisfied. I see, dance, laugh, sing. As the hugging and loving bedfellow sleeps at my side through the night and withdraws at the peep of day with stealthy tread, leaving me baskets covered with white towels, swelling the house with their plenty, shall I postpone my acceptation and realization and scream at my eyes? So we're coming back, these resonances. Coming naked to me at night, crying by day, ahoy. We think about the fact that Melville's Moby Dick was a contemporary text for Leaves of Grass. From the rocks of the river, we think about T.S. Eliot's Dry Salvages, swinging and chirping over my head, calling my name from flower beds, vines, tangled underbrush. Now, literally, obviously, Leaves of Grass. Metaphorically, the fact that we're messing around again with underbrush and with shadows from earlier in the poem. And then we have, interestingly, an absent line, a missing line that runs like this. Or, while I swim in the bath or drink from the pump at the corner, or the curtain is down at the opera, or I glimpse at a woman's face in the railroad car. These lines edited out. Again, I'll leave to you why maybe edited out from the 1855 edition. And then we're back at it. Lightning on every moment of my life. Now we're going to get to this every moment of my life in passage 46, so we'll hear it as an echo. Bussing my body with soft balsamic busses. Obviously, we're back to more growth images. Noiselessly passing handfuls out of their hearts and giving them to be mine. In other words, everything about my youth is leading me to what? Well, look at the next lines. Old age, superbly rising. We're back again to this word rising. You'll notice how regularly we've heard this word. Oh, welcome, sounding very much like starting from Palm 19 with all these O's. Oh, welcome, ineffable grace of dying days. In other words, Whitman is assuming everything about his life, from beginning to middle age to now old age and ultimately dying. And then he uses the word grace. Again, it's almost as if he wants to borrow from the old religion the language that he will create for his inaugurated new religion, as we've talked about it. Every condition promulgates not only itself, it promulges what grows after and out of itself. And the dark hush promulges as much as any. This promulges is just an adaptation of promulgate, to make known, in other words. Notice he says every condition. That is to say, his theodicy. When bad things happen, not why did they happen to me, but rather why did they happen for me. Every condition, right, promulges not only itself, it promulges what grows after and out of itself. Again, growing themes are so important. The underbrush, as we saw before. And the dark hush promulges as much as any. In other words, even out of the silence comes sound, poetic sound. I open my scuttle, that is to say the coal bin, so he opens it up at night, and see the far sprinkled systems. Here we're to the astronomy. When I heard the learned astronomer will be a poem that we will meet later. And all I see multiplied. Remember this use of the word all from starting from Palmach 7, omnes, omnes. And all I see multiplied as high as I can cipher, edge by the rim of the farther systems. In other words, there's so much that's unknown. This is his epistemological fallibilism. There's so much that's unknown. That's why he can't be such an absolutist. I think I'm right, but I could be wrong, because there's so much there. Wider and wider they spread. Notice now, the expanding kind of sense of what's happening. Wider and wider they spread, expanding, always expanding, outward and forever. Outward, see your threes here, right? The evolutionary model. My son has his son, and round him obediently wheels. It's almost like the cosmos is dancing, right? He joins with his partners a group of superior circuit, and greater sets follow, making specks of the greatest inside them. One of the fundamental ideas of the integral model of Ken Wilber is that idea of transcend and include. We're definitely playing the game here. There is no stoppage, and never can be stoppage. That is to say, there's no end. Go back to passage 6 and what he says about death. If I, you, and the worlds, again, this fathomless position of postulating the possibility. If I, you, and the worlds, and all beneath or upon their surfaces, were this moment reduced back to a pallid float, it would not avail the long run. We should surely bring up again where we now stand, and surely go as much farther than farther and farther. Notice again your threes. In other words, if everything, for whatever reason, some apocalyptic end to all of this thing we call this world, were to just immediately take it all back to zero, it just all start up again. And everything would come to this very moment in time. Notice he talks about where he still stands, taking us back to passage 4. We'll stand up now, right? That is to say, there is no way to end this amazing thing called life. A few quadrillions of years, as we've said, so much about the modern science is influencing Whitman now. A few quadrillions of years, a few octillions of cubic leagues. Do not hazard the span or make it impatient. They are but parts. Anything is but a part. And of course here, you can hear the resonances from his love of Tennyson's Ulysses. I am part of all that I have met, yet all experiences an arch where through gleams that untraveled world whose margin fades forever and forever when I move. That idea that you're always moving towards the next thing that you get to know. And then it's all about perspicacity, sight. See ever so far. There is limitless space outside of that. Count ever so much. There is limitless time around that. Notice how he's bringing together space and time. My rendezvous, now to finish. My rendezvous is appointed. It's certain. The Lord will be there, and wait till I come on perfect terms. The great camarero, the lover true, for whom I pine, will be there. Now, there's some interesting things about this from the 1855 edition. The original 1855 read, our rendezvous is fitly appointed. It is certain God will be there. And wait till we come on perfect terms. It's interesting that this idea that the way it's written in 55 is God will be there and wait till I come. Again, the power of that first word of leaves of grass. Now, think about what he's saying here. My rendezvous is appointed. Are we talking fate? Are we talking destiny? Is that how you read this? Right? It is certain. In other words, we swing at the park, as we've said, but the van's always been waiting. They taught it to you when you were 5. I don't want to go to the van. I want to keep swinging at the park. Honey, that's not the way it works. You only get to swing at the park for a few hours. You ain't met no 200-year-old people. Let that sink in. That tells you something. Nobody gets to stay at the park forever. Everybody's got to go to the van. Oh no, you got a rendezvous with the van. It is certain. Oh no, it's coming, right? But notice how he doesn't seem disturbed by that. It originally in 55 was God. He changes it to the Lord will be there. And wait. Remember that line I said from passage 4? I witness and wait. And wait till I come on perfect terms. The idea of it's going to be perfect no matter what happens. We can't help but think of Socrates' comments in Plato's Phaedo at the end of the life of Socrates when in 399 he's ready to drink his hemlock shake. And then we've got this camarero. Now, we saw this already earlier when we were with, starting from Pomenac, number 9, But I want to remind you as well that we saw this in, starting from Paumanok number 9, when it was used for the first time, cameretto. This, I'm now just providing you some notes from Norton's. This favorite word of Walt Whitman for comrade, to be used in Leaves of Grass 7 times, beginning with Song of Myself, is neither the present French camarade nor the Spanish camarada. But as Louis Pound has pointed out, Whitman and the French language in an essay from 1926, it's an Old English form of the Spanish word which he had from the Waverley novels that he loved to read. Camaretto will be then a constant reference. We're going to see this when we get to Song of the Open Road. You maybe remember the way that it got played as well at the end of, starting from Paumanok 19. He says, "Oh, now I triumph, and you shall also..." You'll remember how it ends. The line actually starts at 19 as, "Oh, cameretto close, oh, you and me at last and us two only, oh, a word to clear one's path and ahead endlessly." So we're going to come back. See, the way that he ends, starting from Paumanok, is the way that he'll begin to end Song of Myself. And the great cameretto, the lover, right? Now, the fact lover is fascinating because starting from Paumanok 19, as I was just reading it for you, to just finish that set of lines, hear it now. "Oh, something ecstatic and undemonstratable, oh, music wild. Oh, now I triumph, and you shall also. Oh, hand in hand, oh, wholesome pleasure. Oh, one more desirer and lover. Oh, to haste, firm holding, to haste, haste on with me." The very last lines of starting from Paumanok. And here notice, "The lover true for whom I pine will be there." By the way, did you remember in passage 21 of Song of Myself, "Smiles for your lover comes"? And again, notice the use of the word "come" here. I pine, he says, the one I pine for will be there. In other words, it's all about hope. It's all about hope. Yes, of course, he says, I have the rendezvous, as all of us must. We got to go to the van from the park. But it's going to be fine. It'll all be fine. Let's jump quickly to 2A and some messages here. Well, obviously, all of life, youth, middle age, old age, all connects to growth, right? At 2B, all of the echoes from earlier passages, and obviously the use of this O as it's used in starting from Paumanok 19. At 3A, well, from the inscriptions through starting from Paumanok to everything we've worked with in Song of Myself, it's all connected. What did he call it? The puzzle of puzzles, right? As well, put it in your notes at 3A. We're doing a lot of this work to get ready for what some argue is the very best poem of all of Leaves of Grass, Song of the Open Road. Cameretto, I give you my hand. Finally, at 3B, do you share Whitman's hope, his optimism for all of life? Do you share that idea when, for example, life for you has been kind of hard and rough? And finally, now we're ready to turn to what many will call the heart of Song of Myself. Maybe even the heart of Leaves of Grass. Whitman's genius pedagogy. Passage 46. I hope you'll come back. Thank you.